Hello and welcome to the conversation today on the Mindset Spot. And today we're going to be talking about facing the now to secure the tomorrow. And I'm joined by my host, Daniel Afumbom Munang. Daniel, how are you?
I'm great. It's great to be back. And this episode, like you said, we're facing the now to secure the tomorrow. And it'll be a very brilliant discovery of how we don't procrastinate and how we rather do stuff today so that in tomorrow we can just be chilling.
Absolutely, so that tomorrow can just be chilling. And in the words of Abraham Lincoln, he said the best way to predict your future is to create it now. Today's decisions are tomorrow's realities. Remember, you have the power to shape your future by the choices you make today. And so today's conversation is actually about this, that if you want to live what is called soft life at the moment, you're only postponing the problems of now into tomorrow. And if you bite the nail or bite the bullet, as they say, literally in spoken words, and face the challenges of now, you'll be preparing a better tomorrow. So, Afu, let's get straight to the questions here. What are some of the most pressing problems we face today that we might be overlooking or avoiding?
Yeah, so that's a really brilliant question. And I think it depends based on age group. For example, with teens, it could be studying. With youth, it could also be studying and finding employment. And throughout life, it could also be milestones such as developing a business, working hard, being determined, and sometimes even waking up in the morning. That could be part of it, right? So, in order for us to bite the bullet, we must realize that everything has an adverse and opposite reaction. So, if you do work today and you study for a test, time for the test, you're going to be prepared. But if you don't study, the test is still going to happen anyways. And instead of you being prepared, then you'll be lost.
Wonderful. Instead of you being prepared, you will be lost. And because the reality is that, as you've rightly said, the global and local issues that we face today and the consequences of inaction are real. And therefore, understanding these problems and playing our part becomes very, very important. But a lot of people have argued that they want soft life and that this soft life have to come now or never. But yet, the fact that you enjoy the moment now doesn't necessarily mean that the problem has been solved. Why are people always thinking the moment and not thinking the tomorrow and not knowing that tomorrow can only be better by the actions we take now?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people tend to think of the now because we're living in the now, right? And to see the future, although it can be hard, it's very important to think long term. And a lot of people forget that because the right now seems like it's most important. But whether you say, oh, let's say you want to be a physician, a doctor, you say 8 years is too long, the 8 years are still going to pass. And if you really wanted to be a physician, then those 8 years would have wasted and they would have been rendered inconsequential. So by being like Nike's slogan and just doing it and just suffering the immediate adverse effects now, like studying, not being able to go out as much, then in the next 8 years, let's just use the example of becoming a physician, then you'll be able to fully obtain your goals and thrive to your full potential. But a lot of people just focus on the now and also relating to peer pressure. If none of your friends are also doing it, the chances of you wanting to do it are slimmer, right? So also peer pressure and technology too has an it's a contributing factor in this.
Absolutely. Peer pressure. But yet, what is not necessarily told is that every time we face challenges, because let's put it in perspective, today we face a myriad of challenges. Whether we're talking about climate change, we're talking about social inequality, we're talking about digital privacy, which we do discuss on this platform each and every time. These stand out as problems across the world. Climate change, for example, some have sidelined it in political discussions, yet its impact is evidence in increased natural disasters and changing weather patterns, floods, droughts, cyclones. We see them each and every day. We're talking about wildfires in Australia or California or in Canada, which has been linked to the broader effects of the changing climate. These issues, we do see them. And I'm bringing this perspective. It may sound like it's big grammar. It's not big grammar or big book, as they say. You take out social inequalities. It's another critical issue. What we saw with COVID-19 pandemic exacerbating the gap between the rich and the poor. And we've seen that access to healthcare, as we're speaking today, and remote work capabilities, which are luxuries for many in underprivileged communities, and those in underprivileged communities do not have that. So the the reason I'm bringing this up is that when we ignore these issues, we only postpone the problem. And social inequality, if ignored or left unaddressed, leads to social unrest and destabilized societies. And even digital privacy inaction could lead to a future where personal freedoms are significantly compromised. So my question then becomes, when we want the now to be better without solving the problems of now, we're definitely postponing the problem to tomorrow. Is the messaging sinking enough or being loud enough to make everyone understand that anytime you postpone a problem, you are only postponing the difficulty into the future? And that anytime we feel that we're having a nice moment or living a good life without solving the problems that we're facing, we're only postponing the problems to tomorrow. And if so, what's wrong from us biting the bullet now and solving the problem?
Yeah, so I do think that the message, although people are trying to share it, it's not being actively listened to. And to answer that question, I think it's due to it being hard and it not being the most comfortable setting idea. And from that perspective, I mean it in the sense of it's not that nice, it's not that easy. Let's just use the example of studying, to study and lock in for a long amount of time, right? But if you don't study now, I'm using the example, let's say you have a test in 2 weeks. If you don't start studying now, you're going to study the night before. And when you're studying the night before, the question is always, or the dilemma is always, why didn't I do this earlier? Why did I wait till now? Right? And this isn't only an example, an analogy used through an academic perspective, also within life. If you're trying to obtain something and you just wait, oh, I'm going to do that another day, I'm going to apply to this job next week. If you're doing it the night before, the job is you're still going to eventually apply for it and you're still going to eventually need a job. But if you keep on postponing that, you're not going to develop the experience, soft skills, and technical skills you need to thrive. And what I would say to those who are wondering, and why this is also a big epidemic due to social media, because on social media we see people glamorizing the soft life without transparency, because there is nothing wrong with soft life. The question occurs when are you doing nothing to obtain that soft life? And on the internet it seems as such, but that's not the real reality.
That's not a real reality, but somehow people tend to believe that, and it's taking us nowhere. So this takes me now to the second question. Why do people and societies often avoid confronting the present challenges? Why is it so difficult for everyone to confront the present challenge, whether it is the challenge of poverty, of climate change, which is an environmental challenge, or why is it that people love short-term economic gains versus long-term gains? They just want the immediate now to feel better now rather than doing the hard things now or enduring short-term pain now for long-term gain into the future.
Yeah, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's because, frankly, it's easy. And this relates back to our concept that we've talked about before, the power of no. And a lot of people use the power of no very seldom. But the more that we are able to say no to procrastination, say no to laziness, say no to peer pressure, then we'll be able to face the now and do what's important now and focus on the priorities now, so that in the next coming days, next coming weeks, next coming years, we have developed a strong foundation so that then we can start building the blocks to create a structure. A structure
Excellent.
of our life.
I think I like that approach. Very true. I think I like that, because the question then is, like we started off by saying, for those of you who are joining in, we are conversing about facing problems, building the future, and why the attitude of postponing the problems of now into the future are not helping us. You only postpone the problem, you postpone the suffering. There's nothing like soft life when the problems that are supposed to be solved now are not solved, and 1 minute, 10-hour enjoyment makes one forget the problems that are existing. You only still face them again tomorrow. So when we talk about postponing them into the future, we are referring to the act of delaying addressing immediate challenges, addressing immediate problems, or decisions in the hope that these problems might resolve themselves over time or become someone else's problem. And so this mindset, for those of you who are joining in, has led to a cycle of avoidance and accumulation where unresolved issues grow in complexity and severity, making them more challenging to tackle in the future. What does this mean? A classical example is getting up in the morning to do sports. Said, my sleep too sweet now, I'm not gonna get up. Then you don't do the sport. It doesn't, your weight will still remain the same, and your body is not going to reduce even an inch of the kilogram that you could have lost by getting up to do sports. So procrastination is the theft of time, so to say, but short-term pain for long-term gain is what we should do. When it comes to environmental degradation, for example, ignoring the pressing challenge of pollution, littering on our streets, throwing plastic waste everywhere, right? Throwing organic waste from our households everywhere. And these issues of pollution and climate change today not only worsens the health of our planet, but it also worsens our health and also leaves a fundamental and formidable challenge for future generations to solve. So if we play our part now, we create a better tomorrow. That is the point. The other aspect that Afu did articulate very eloquently was how we see several factors that are contributing to this tendency. For example, she talked about the fear of failure. The fear of failure is actually the reason why people and societies often avoid confronting present challenges. The fear of failure, the discomfort of change, and the human preference for immediate gratification over long-term benefits. Societally, what we've seen is that there's often a resistance to tackling big issues due to self-interest, due to political, economic, and social pressures. And if you take climate change, which is very practical, transitioning to renewable energy sources is essential for combating climate change. It can help a mother in a village have access to electricity to not only light her home, but to add value to her vegetables and be able to use a solar power cool storage to store her food and milk and etc. Yet immediate economic interest and the disruption of established industries can create significant resistance to these changes. Yes, over to you, Afu. What do you think society needs to do? Or better put, what are the consequences of postponing problems?
Yeah, so that's a really good question as well. And I think that what society needs to do is for us to, I know we do have a preference for instant gratification. However, we need to think of it more from a delayed gratification perspective. Because let's say we are, I'm going to use the academic analogy because it's very easy, and I'm a student right now, so it makes the most sense. Let's say you are studying for your exams, right? Your final exam, your final culminating. The teacher gives you the study guide 3 weeks in advance, right? And you say, oh, I'm not going to look at the study guide. I have the XYZ mark in the class. I'm doing well. Even if I fail the exam, I'm still above an 80, right? Let's say, and then you look at the study guide the night before and you see a bunch of stuff you've never seen before, right? And that instant gratification of you being confident in your mark is also great. But then the delayed gratification would be if you study hard, you do XYZ, you study, you make your notes, then time for the exam, it's a breathe, you're chilling. But on the other hand, if you have that instant gratification, oh, I'll go out instead of studying, and then you're still going to have to study either way. You study the night before, and you realize there's so many things that you didn't know. And there was a reason, in fact, the teacher putting the exam review 3 weeks in advance. Then, like we say in colloquial terms, you're cooked, right? So then what we need to do is shift away from the process of instant gratification and move towards one of delayed gratification, because at the end of the day, you're still going to age, the time is still going to fly, but once it flies, do you have something tangible to show?
Wow, what a way to sum it up, Afu. And it's so beautifully said. Instant gratification, the consequences of postponing problems are manifold, which means affecting every aspect of society, affecting even our environment. Even economically, it leads to higher costs down the line, which means that if you don't solve a problem today, and like I've was illustrated with academics, if you don't read because you want to have an easy, soft life, you will pay the price tomorrow by failing an exam, and it will complicate your life down the road into the future. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong to fail, but you should be able to learn in the process, and you should fail understanding you gave all your all. That's different as ignoring to solve a problem to read to pass an exam. And so as a result of this, it can lead to higher costs down the line as issues become more entrenched and difficult to resolve. Socially, it can exacerbate inequalities and lead to heightened tensions. Environmentally, delaying action on issues like pollution, climate change can result in irreversible damage to ourselves, to loss of biodiversity, and even extreme weather that impact food security, the food we eat. These are practical realities. And so the way you put it, instant gratification is actually killing us. In what way can we be able to stop the attitude of enjoyment now, but suffering tomorrow? Overpool.
Yeah, so I think with the suffering aspect, a lot of people think when something's hard that initially means I'm suffering, but then when you're quote unquote suffering now, you think in the future you're not going to be suffering. But if you're chilling now, in the future you're going to be suffering, right? So I'm still going to use the academic analogy, but from a post-secondary perspective. Let's say you're pushing through your degree, you have a really hard degree, you're pushing through it, but then you consider dropping out. That you may be suffering now in your degree, but if you drop out, you're going to be suffering later. But if you're suffering now in the next 4 or 5 years, once you're done your degree, you're going to have a good job and you're going to be prosperous through using the skills you've learned through your degree. But if you drop out, the second things get hard, then you'll never fully learn to fail forward. And if you don't fail, which is what we learn through doing hard things, then you'll never be able to grow once it really matters. Because if you don't learn how to fail once it's really small, when it doesn't matter, let's say you have a test, you get a 60 on it, but you're in like grade 9, but you've never learned how to fail. Once that happens, once you're older, then it's going to be very hard to develop those skills which you were supposed to develop at a young age. The skills such as studying, hard work, diligence, discipline. So it all starts now. It's like a tree. If the tree is not watered from the time the seed is in the ground, then it's not going to grow. It's going to be wilting. Same way, if you don't water yourself with the seeds of discipline, determination, steadfastness, courage, then once your tree grows, then it's not going to have the solid root to thrive in the forest of life.
I love that, to strive in the forest of life. And I think let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss how we can turn the attitude of laxity, of postponing difficulty into the future, thinking that short-term enjoyment now can make us have long-term enjoyment, how we can reverse that attitude, because without enduring short-term pain, we cannot endure long-term gain. Until then, we'll be right back.
The power of innovative volunteerism is transforming lives, transforming societies, mobilizing youth, empowering them, inspiring them, and ushering them to climate action.
Rise up, you and me.
These are simple, practical solutions that are climate action. They don't contribute to emissions, but they create opportunities not just for the farmers, but also for the young people.
Climate change is already redefining the contours of this continent more dramatically than any other. And this is not only going to exacerbate these already existing precarious conditions, but will put the continent on a path that if we don't reverse it, we might not be able to truly create the Africa we want as enshrined in African Union Agenda 2063. And this calls for a paradigm shift.
Whether it's flood or drought, making millions helpless, my brother. This is an emergency that threatens the future, and we must address this together, Africa. Why Africa is look way from North to East Africa, West to South, Central Africa. I can see the youth standing up, using their talents and skills to change challenges to opportunity, using the power of innovative volunteerism, which is their toll, your toll, my toll, ayo. Volontaria innova. Read more in the book Making African Work Through Innovative Volunteerism by Dr. Richard Muna. Watina kong ma bom pepe soup, watina kong ma bom ishiu. yeah. Rise up, rise up.
Yes, and that was the break. And after the break, we're back. Facing the now to secure the future is the conversation today. And before we went on break, it was not just electric. As Afumbom did say, the consequences of postponing problems is what we must be able to address. Because if we keep postponing the problems, then definitely we cannot be able to make a difference. So, Afu, how can individuals start to focus and play their part in addressing problems now, not tomorrow? What do we need to do, especially the young people? Because the young people do say that they need to enjoy now. But the question then is, who should work for them to enjoy? But there are also young people who are getting caught up in the narrative that things are hard. But at what point in human existence were things not hard? The preceding generations fought so hard to make life easier for us today. And actually today we have social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, where we are even having this conversation here on YouTube, etc. But at the end of the day, instead of leveraging these spaces to do right and think right, the vitriol and somehow the innuendos that are spurred in these spaces outweigh the solutions and ideas that we should be able to provide so that others can pick and solve problems. Aren't we the making of the very problems we have today? And if so, why do we complain about what we cause?
Yeah, to answer your question, I do think we are the reason for our downfall, the same way we are the reason for our up. We're the same way we're the reason for our success. And the reason why I think a lot of young people believe that it's our time to enjoy, it's our time to chop life, as it said.
Chop life and chop money.
Yeah. I don't see an issue with that, but the issue comes when we neglect our priorities solely to chop life and to enjoy. And the reason why I think that we are tending to neglect our priorities is due to social media and digital footprint. And I know people who watch this weekly, they're definitely like, why is this girl always talking about digital footprint? Because it relates to every single aspect of life. And I'm going to give this brief explanation, this little synopsis. If you see everyone around you on social media with bottles in their hand, boarding passes in their hand, and left, right, center, they're gallivanting across the globe and living their best lives, and you think that they're not doing anything to have that, right? Then you're going to think that, oh, I don't have to do anything so that I can attain this quote unquote soft life. And yes, it's good to have these luxuries, but we need to realize the way that we obtain these luxuries, it's not through sitting around and waiting for someone to come and do it for you. It's by striving and doing it through your own merits. And a lot of people forget that they have to do it through their own merits, and then it never happens because they don't end up doing anything towards it. And yes, it's good to have goals, but a lot of people have goals that are not attainable, and even if they are attainable, they think that someone else is supposed to attain it for them, which is not the case.
Even if they're not attainable, they think that someone else have to attain it for them. I think those are very powerful phrases, because the reality is that from what you've said and from what a lot of people do not understand is that nobody is going to do it for you. What you are facing today piles in comparison to what our forefathers faced, to what our mothers and fathers faced, to what some of us face. And therefore, nobody gives anybody anything for free. You have to work and get your hands dirty to get what you can call yours. And so if you think life is difficult now, just wait as you postpone the problem through complaining and blame game. And tomorrow will be more difficult than today. So the advice is very simple. When you get up from bed, the first thing you're supposed to do is to fix your bed. Don't step your foot and get out of that room without fixing your bed. When you fix your bed, brush your teeth and do some sports. When you do those sports, the first thing that you've done that you may not know that you've accomplished by fixing your bed and doing sports, if you can, you've already achieved something very early in the morning. What that does is that it boosts up your morale, that the little thing that you've achieved is going to make you achieve more during your day. When you get up, leave without fixing your bed, you've already caused a problem for yourself, because you have proven to your own very self, whom you are supposed to be proud of, that you are not able to lead your own self. If you can't lead yourself, you cannot lead others. And what I usually say is that leadership is personal responsibility. So the question then becomes, are the postponement of the problems into the future aspects of failed leadership? Yes. The answer is a capital Y, capital E, and capital S. And why do I say so? The leadership problems that we face in the world today, and especially across the entire African continent, sometimes people think that they are of a making of now because people get power, and then leadership is not just about holding a political office. Even you yourself, when you get up and you don't fix your bed, you are a failed leader. So you must start blaming yourself. Oh, I'm not good. Because tomorrow when you end up in a leadership position, you are not going to play the role because you were irresponsible. So leadership is personal responsibility. Leadership is passion to do right. Like what we're doing here and educating the masses on what they're supposed to do to be able to secure the future by working today, enduring the pain, stopping the spike and spiking the hype. That is the right thing that to do. Or what do you have to say?
Yeah, so before I answer that question, we do actually have a question from Gua Edinosa. And he states, I have been pondering on this subject of procrastination as a major setback to growth and progress for some time now. How can we really draw a line of distinction between patience and procrastination? We tend to misinterpret often between these two.
Yes, I think that's a very important question. The reality is that patience doesn't mean that you sit folding your arms without doing something. Patience actually means you do a lot of things as you wait for other alternatives and opportunities to pop up. Let me repeat it again. Patience means you do things as you wait for other things that you may have been waiting for to come through. It doesn't mean posting, holding your hands and folding your arms and sitting down. It means being active as you wait for other things. And even if they don't show up, you will still be fine. So in essence, patience to me should be about diversification, because diversification is the biggest security of a system. That if you are growing yams and there is a drought that the yams cannot grow, then grow cassava, hoping that the rains will come and your yams can be planted, or your maize can be planted, or your beans can be planted. And so with patience comes diversification. And so a person who can be able to diversify their portfolio is a patient person, because when one fails, another will pop up. And even if another is delaying to pop up, he or she is doing something different. Procrastination is pretty much saying, I will do it tomorrow and I will do it tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow never comes. Why? Because there will be always tomorrow. And so in 365 days of postponement, there is always tomorrow. We should start saying, I will do it now. Anybody who says I will do it tomorrow, the question should be why tomorrow? And any excuse is just a flimsy way to run away from doing something. Have you ever noticed that when you engage somebody who doesn't want to do something, his excuses will be more eloquent and he will use a lot of energy and passion to explain the reason why he or she will not do it as compared to the time you could have taken to do the thing. So the explanation and defense will be longer than the actual time that would have been needed to do what was needed. So the point becomes then, human beings are actually structured to somehow feel ease with what is wrong and feel pain with what is right. And that is why when you tell somebody to get up early and study, he or she will enjoy the sleep, but the sleep, what value is it going to give? We have 24 hours a day and 365 days a year. But each and everyone who makes the difference is the person who utilizes his or her 24 hours a day and 365 years in a judicious, valuable, and effective way, as compared to the one who was only procrastinating. Overful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And now it's my turn on the show to ask you questions. And like I said previously, we always discuss digital footprint, and I'd like to hear your thoughts regarding this. Do you think that the rise of technology and digital footprint has enabled more people to not to procrastinate and to focus on the now and focus on posting for the gram, and like colloquially we say flexing for the gram, rather than focusing on how they can secure tomorrow? If so, what do you think we can do to mitigate this and spike the influx of procrastination?
Very good question. The reality is the concept of the digital footprint, like we've always discussed each and every week, comprising the trail of data we leave online, what we say online, what we see online, what we see on social media spaces, play a significant and complex role in shaping the behaviors of each and everyone, especially the youth of today, including the tendency to procrastinate and how individuals focus on the present. In many ways, what one could say is that the digital world today is designed to capture our attention, often diverting it from tasks or commitments that require more concentration effort, such as work or long-term actions that can better our tomorrow. And what you have asked is very important. When somebody goes online and sees a Lamborghini that somebody is standing closer, he or she will think that if it is true that Lamborghini is actually owned by that person, that the person just wake up from bed, press a button, and got that Lamborghini. He or she forgets to know that it took years of hard work. It took years of endurance, of dedication. But also, those who post it do not explain the process of how they got it. And so the instant gratification, to use your words, becomes the new normal, where everybody starts to feel that we do not need to wait for tomorrow, but we need to live it now because others are living it. And that's a false narrative. It is a false narrative that others are perpetuating on social media, making others to think that the digital environment actually strives on the reality. It strives on the principle of gratification, instant gratification, which is wrong. Delivering content, responses, and rewards immediately to people is not the reality of now. And this condition have made individuals to seek quick wins. And by a result of seeking quick wins, they get into negativity to tarnish others, because there are algorithms of most of these social media pick up negative information and amplifies it. And so the more likes and the more reviews and the more shares that people get, then they get so excited that they think that they can continue to spread negativity. But mind you me, as they say in these parlance, one day that very messaging will come back to haunt you. Don't feel instant gratification now and happy that you have gotten more likes by saying negative things about others because you want an instant like and an instant celebrity life. It will come back to haunt you. That is a fact, and you cannot deny it. And so these conditions of trying to get quick wins or pleasures, such as scrolling through social media and watching videos and over engaging in activities that require more time and effort, but are ultimately not rewarding, even in the long run, have made a lot of people to not complete their task today, to not do the work, to not solve the problem, but go for clicks because they want instant money. Powerful.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And the point that you mentioned about how, let's say someone's posting with a Lamborghini on Instagram, they're not being transparent on how that came. And a lot of people from the outside looking in, they'll think that they just spawned in with a Lamborghini. However, that's not the case. And a lot of people then think that because this person spawned in, when in reality they didn't spawn in, I can spawn in as well. So my next question for you is, how do you think we can leverage social media? Now, on the contrary, how do you think we can leverage social media to face the now and secure tomorrow?
Well, very, very important. That is exactly what we should do. Leveraging social media to save the now and then secure the tomorrow. Sounds like a political slogan, but it really should be, right? Because let's face it, in the 1960s and 1970s, when the fight for self-determined rule by our founding fathers in the African continent was at what I call the fever pitch, they never had Facebook, neither did they have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and you name it. But they were so effective in engaging one another and with the diligence of what was at hand to liberate a continent, to free the people, and to be able to gain independence so that at least a continent could prosper. And I love to use this analogy of self-determined rule and how African liberators, or what is called today the founding fathers of the continent, so united and dedicated and focused, with that having all the resources that were needed to be able to mobilize each and every one, still succeeded because of one thing: discipline. Because of one thing: discipline, determination, focus, diligence. And what that meant was that without having opportunity and having everything, actually spurs a human being to put in extra effort, and extra effort always brings results. But when we are inundated with so much in terms of the communication channels that we have today, social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc., yet instead of using that to make sure that each and everyone have the right information to do right and think right, it is leverage to spur most of the time, and I underline the word most of the time, negativity. And therefore, leveraging social media to drive positive change should be our own fierce agency of now. Yes, it should be, because to address the current challenges, leveraging social media is the best, most powerful strategy. And given its extensive reach, which in the 60s and 70s, it wasn't there, it means that we can be able to leverage social media to be able to harness and encourage action and spread awareness and mobilize communities on urgent issues. For example, amplifying voices. What does this mean? We can share stories of our individual self on social media, how we grew up and how we struggled and how we overcame adversity. That can inspire a kid in Soweto, in Nairobi, in Yaoundé, in Bamenda, in Limbe, in Chad, etc. But are we doing that enough? The answer is no. Why? Because the algorithm picks up negative information, that you have 500 views in 1 minute as compared to what is said right and can inspire people to have one view. That's fine. That's okay. And so leveraging social media for advocacy and activism on the right things to do, using social media to amplify the voices of what needs to be done, spreading messages to broader audiences should be what we should do. The second aspect that we need to use social media is to educate. There's a lot of ignorance, not because anybody chose, because when you don't know and you are not looking for information to clear your doubts and to enrich your repertoire of knowledge, then definitely you will be ignorant. Ignorance is something that we choose. Because if you are yearning and hungry for knowledge, you will get the knowledge. And therefore, we must be able to share content that educates the public on the importance of facing current challenges. Yesterday, you, Afu, and Nathan were on my very good friend's show, Mr. Chamakong Divine, Chat Night Africa, and you were discussing issues on violence, and you were bringing ideas that could then be able to enrich the repertoire of those who are yearning to get that ideas on how do we avoid teenage violence and ensure that at least young people can grow up and steer off all those spaces. And so the live session we have, just to conclude with this, on this mindset spot, is actually to be able to discuss problems and solutions in real time that allow for interactive participation. And this can help mobilize action and inspire other people, and also help people to get information on what they don't have. That is how we can use social media to drive positive change, to do three things: spread positive knowledge, bring solutions to the problems we face, and use the spaces to inspire, not to create that atmosphere of negativity that many seem to strive best on, but to rather prove that we can do better when we are in a positive environment. Over.
Yeah, so my last question for you before we call it wraps, I think that you have brought up a very good point about the algorithm on social media. And a lot of data scientists and AI scientists have realized that the algorithm simply just picks up what the viewers want to see. And if the viewer wants to see negativity, then the algorithm pushes negativity. So at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to the algorithm, because the algorithm is decided by the people. Whatever people like more, that's what shows up more. And if people like more negative stuff, then more negativity will show. And what do you have to say about this? Why do you think that people tend to always like the things that are negative, always like the things that are about blasting leaders in their home nations, always like the things that generally don't add any intellectual value, but rather not like the things like this and like other platforms that can add intellectual value? What do you think is the reason for this? Why do you think negativity is being pushed so much?
Very good question, Afu, and very important and timely. And I think that question on its own should be a show that we should do. The fact of the matter is this: the algorithm that underpins all social media platforms play a significant role in determining what content, as you've rightly said, users want to see. And often it prioritizes engagement and clicks and likes and shares over the quality or veracity of the information. And this is leading to the amplification of sensational, misleading, sometimes, and even outright false information. Because these platforms and content creators take advantage to drive what the audience needs to see. And to your question, which is, why do people love negativity? The human brain, let me explain this to you, is so much so that it does what is called risk avoidance. So anything that can give pain to the brain is avoided. That is why the brain, if you train your brain, and I like to use this analogy of the brain, to get up at 5 every day, the initial days of getting up at 5 a.m. will be very difficult. You force yourself to do it. But the more you continuously force yourself to do it, you will then start to get up at 5. But it will not, in the first month, second month, be easy. But if you want to sleep and get up at 11 and have that laissez-faire attitude, not to do your assignment, anything that will not bring any pain to the brain, any effort to the brain, is easily received. And that is why when we talk about climate change here and solutions, somebody will say, what is that? That one is put food for my table. But he or she doesn't know that he or she is directly implicated in that problem. When there is a drought and there is no food, he or she will have to go to the market and buy 1 kilogram of maize for a higher price. Whereas if there was bumper harvest, he or she will buy it at a cheaper price and save more money. But if it was gossip that is tearing down one another, because the brain gets it without any further thought, they will listen to it. And the other aspect of negativity that we don't talk about is that generally human beings do not like to see others progress generally because of competition. And because of the competitive negative energy and negative competition, sometimes when there is positive news, it gets less likes because people are asking, why not me? Rather than understanding that you can rise on the glue of others to move up, because it takes one another to grow. You cannot grow alone, but you can burst in the glue of others to shine. And because of the lack of that information for people to understand that we all need to stand on the shoulders of one another to grow, on the shoulders of giants, and the giants are those who have gone ahead of you. That lack of education and understanding that it takes two to tango is making people think individualistic rather than collective. It's making people think selfish rather than selfless. It's making people think hopeless rather than hopeful. And because of that, the algorithms are made to make money. The more likes, the more shares, then they use it to show their adverts and make money. And so the social media space is a business space, but that is also helping to make people lose themselves and forget the values in which they're supposed to inculcate and showcase to the world. But like we said earlier, what do you do on social media? We'll come back to haunt you one day. So mind what you say and mind what you post. Will you sacrifice your values? Will you sacrifice who and what you stand for because of likes, because of shares, and because of monetization? What will it benefit a man if he or she do everything and lose at the end? I'm not paraphrasing, but I'm saying something important. I think Need Divine is here, and he said Daniel is a dynamite. And what do you have to say to Need Divine? You were on his show yesterday.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Mr. Chamakong. It was really an honor to be on your show. And the conversation was really prevalent and very relevant in today's society, because a lot of youth, they're going down the wrong path and crime is becoming a leading factor. And with this episode, we also got to learn about different ways on how to mitigate this, not only from a parental standpoint, but also what we, the children, and we, the youth, can do to shift our mindset from one of crime to one of success, and what we can do as a community across the world to stop the crime. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, and this episode has been very, very, very interesting with your collaboration. And keep engaging, keep following, keep on coming every Saturday, because we won't be able to do this without you. So as we wrap up, face the now to secure the tomorrow, and let's spike the hike of procrastination and act the way we think and move forward so that we can stop procrastination and begin facing the now to secure tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
To secure tomorrow, what a way to end the show, a full and an amazing way to put it together. As we wrap up, let us secure the future. Indeed, by doing what we must do now, because without enduring short-term pain, we cannot endure long-term gain. Because regardless of where you come from, whether your name is Jay or John or Richard or Rung or Chong or John, it doesn't matter. We are in this world together, and the world is our home. And if we do not come together to solve the problems, we will only be exacerbating the problems, and they are not going to go away. They will only make our life difficult into the future. And so, the enlightening journey through the theme of our discussion today, failing to address the problems of now, only helps to postpone the problems of now into the tomorrow of years to come. And so let's reflect, as we've listened and we've heard, that the detrimental effects of procrastination and the allure of short-term gains over long-term gain boils down to one word: how we manage our time. And it boils down to another word: expectation. Let me give you a very practical example as we run up. If you go to the same gym and practice with Usain Bolt, you are not necessarily going to do different than him if you do not have one word: expectation. He practiced because he wants to run a race. You practice. What is your expectation? So when you do something without having an expectation, you lose the morale and the passion. So if you are working hard today because tomorrow you want to become better in public speaking, you want to be able to engage on live TV, being articulate, you will work so hard today because you have a target. When you don't have a target, you then lose the momentum to be able to build your prowess and passion and dedication into what you do today, because then you are goalless. What is your goal? In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, he said the future depends on what we do in the present. This quote encapsulates the essence of our discussion today. Each moment, each decision you make, each action you take shapes the world. Yes, it does. And it is the world in which we inhabit, regardless of where we live, which religion, affiliation you are in. It doesn't really matter. It reminds us that postponing essential actions and decisions only magnifies the challenges into the future. So the question then becomes, as you listen to us today, let us remember one cultural anthropologist called Margaret Mead. She said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And this reinforces the idea that each of us play a critical role in shaping our collective future. By choosing to face the challenges of today head on, not only improve our lives, but it ensures a better world for those who will follow. And so thank you all for joining in today. I am Richard Munang with my co-host Daniel Afumbom Munang, reminding you that the power to shape the future lies in each and every one of us. Let's choose to act today for a brighter, more sustainable tomorrow. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and never stop striving to make a difference. Bye-bye.